Welcome to Season 4, Episode 8 of Workers' Comp Unwrapped with Anik, your host, and Angela, who has 15 years of experience in the industry. Today we are talking about navigating AB 1870, ensuring compliance in multi-role practices, which is really about what multi-role clinics must do to stay compliant with AB 1870 in 2026.
Right, and it is a massive, massive shift for anyone in this space.
It really is. I mean, imagine successfully curing a patient's really complex shoulder injury. You get them fully rehabilitated.
You do everything right clinically.
Everything right. You return them to work ahead of schedule, high fives all around, and then bam, you lose $50,000 in a state audit.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is the nightmare scenario.
It is. And why did you lose it? Because your evaluating physician happened to talk to your billing manager in the hallway about the case instead of logging that specific conversation into a structured workflow.
Yeah, that informal chat just cost you your margin for the year.
Exactly. So welcome to the new, highly scrutinized reality of workers' compensation. Healing the patient is no longer the finish line. Frankly, it's barely the starting gun at this point.
It really is just the baseline now.
Right. Now, the regulatory overlords want to dissect exactly how your business is structured. And if you don't play along with their incredibly specific documentation demands, you will be punished.
Heavily punished. The financial penalties are not a joke.
No, they are not. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at a highly targeted industry transcript that breaks down this massive regulatory shift coming for workers' comp clinics as we hurtle toward the year 2026.
Specifically looking at the fallout of AB 1870.
Yes, AB 1870. And the mission for you today, the learner listening to this, is to extract exactly what your practice must do to stay compliant, fix your internal workflows, and most importantly, stop bleeding money.
Because the financial element, it really is the key driver here. When clinic owners hear a legislative term like AB 1870, they naturally assume it's just, another layer of bureaucratic busywork.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Just another form to fill out.
Right. Something to just hand off to the compliance officer while the rest of the clinic does the actual work. But our source material paints a very different picture.
How so?
Well, failing to adapt to these new structural expectations directly correlates to massive financial leaks. And these are leaks that clinic owners often don't even realize are happening right under their noses.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because underneath the general annoyance of government oversight, which we all feel, there is an absolute gold mine hidden in this source material.
There really is.
They call them silent losses. But before we can get into how you are losing money, we need to clarify what the regulators are actually targeting here. Our source material is laser-focused on the multi-role clinic.
Yeah, the multi-role setup. So for anyone operating in this space, AB 1870 is this upcoming state legislation that fundamentally rewires how the government evaluates the integrity of a workers' comp clinic.
And it specifically targets practices performing multiple functions under one roof, right?
Exactly. So rather than a clinic that simply does orthopedic evaluations and then sends the patient away to someone else, a multi-role clinic does it all.
They keep it in-house.
Right. They might do the initial evaluation, authorize the ongoing treatment plan, execute that treatment, and handle the billing-related tasks, all within the exact same organizational structure.
Which, I mean, on paper, that sounds like the absolute ideal model for patient care. It's a one-stop shop.
It is very convenient.
The injured worker doesn't have to drive to 4 different facilities across town. They get evaluated, they get treated, and they get processed in one place. It's highly efficient.
From a patient experience standpoint, it is incredibly efficient. But from a regulatory standpoint, well, it is a breeding ground for conflicts of interest.
Oh, right. The money part.
Exactly. The risk doesn't stem from offering multiple services. Regulators don't hate convenience. The risk arises from the blurriness between those services.
What do you mean by blurriness?
Well, if the exact same entity that is evaluating a patient's injury is also directly controlling the financial authorization for the treatment.
And then pocketing the money.
Right. And directly pocketing the billing revenue from that treatment, regulators see a massive, massive incentive to overprescribe care or to manipulate billing codes.
I mean, looking at this setup, honestly, it seems like a fundamental conflict of interest. Like if I go to a restaurant and the head chef cooking my food is also the local health inspector greeting the kitchen.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. And on top of that, they're also the cashier ringing up whatever price they feel like charging me. That is terrifying from an oversight perspective.
Zero accountability.
Zero checks and balances.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, is the multi-role setup itself inherently bad, or is the problem just sloppy, undocumented execution. Like, shouldn't regulators just ban these multi-role clinics altogether and force independent evaluations?
You know, you would think that's the logical next step for the government, just ban them. But banning them outright would completely collapse the workers' comp ecosystem.
Really, just total collapse.
Oh, absolutely. There simply aren't enough independent providers out there to handle the sheer volume of injured workers without causing catastrophic delays in care.
Oh, I see. So the system needs them.
It desperately needs them, and the legislative bodies know this. So rather than outlawing the multi-role setup, AB 1870 shifts the regulatory focus.
Okay, so how does the focus shift?
Historically, an auditor would look at the clinical outcome, right? They'd ask, did the patient get better? Was the medical care appropriate?
Basically, did you do a good job as a doctor?
Exactly. But under the new framework, the scrutiny is hyper-focused on the operational structure behind that care.
So they don't just want the right answer, they want to see the math.
Yes, that is the core of AB 1870. The government is demanding absolute documented proof that your evaluation department operates completely independently from your billing incentives.
Even if they're in the same building.
Even if they share the exact same break room and drink from the same coffee pod. If you cannot produce a documentation trail proving those overlapping roles have rigid structural boundaries, the state will assume misconduct.
Wow. Guilty until proven innocent.
Essentially, yes. The burden of proof has entirely shifted onto the clinic.
And that leads us directly into the operational chaos that happens when those boundaries don't exist, which brings us to the actual tangible damage this blurriness causes.
The financial damage.
Yeah, the source calls these silent losses. And I love that term because it illustrates a very specific type of financial pain.
It's not a massive fine hitting you all at once.
Right. It's not a lawsuit or a huge penalty that bankrupts the clinic overnight. It's a slow, quiet bleed.
Exactly. When a multi-role clinic operates without clear structural separation, things inevitably fall through the cracks. Take missed RFAs, for example.
Requests for authorization.
Right. In a tightly structured clinic, the handoff between the physician recommending treatment and the administrative team submitting the RFA is tracked meticulously.
It's in the system.
But in a blurry, informal clinic, that handoff might just be a sticky note on a monitor or a quick conversation in the hallway.
Hey, make sure you send that off for John Doe.
Exactly. And what happens? The treatment gets performed because the doctor said so, but the formal RFA was never officially logged and submitted by the admin team.
I know we assume the audience is familiar with the daily grind of workers' comp, so I don't need to explain how critical an RFA is to actually getting paid. But what's staggering here is why AD 1870 makes this so much worse.
It raises the stakes completely.
It does. Because under the old rules, if you miss that RFA, maybe you fight with the adjuster, you do an appeal, you eventually get, I don't know, some fraction of the payment.
You salvage something.
Right. But under the new scrutiny, that lack of formal process isn't just a missed payment, it's a massive audit trigger.
It absolutely is. It signals to the regulators that your clinic lacks basic operational controls. And the financial hits really compound when you look at underbilled codes.
Oh, this part of the source material was wild to me.
It happens all the time. Consider a scenario where a provider performs a highly complex evaluation, one that legitimately justifies a higher tier billing code.
They did the hard work.
They did, but because there isn't a rigid, documented workflow forcing that provider to explicitly justify the complexity to the billing department within the software.
The billing team just guesses.
Basically. The billing team looks at a vague, quickly written chart, and they play it safe by submitting a standard low-level code. They don't want to trigger a denial.
Wow.
So the clinic loses revenue on work that was actually performed entirely due to internal communication relying on casual assumptions.
The source identifies the root cause of all this as informal processes. It's the fly by the seat of your pants management style.
Yes, the we've always done it this way mentality.
Right. Someone shouts down the hall, hey, make sure we bill for that complex shoulder evaluation. And everyone just assumes it got done properly.
Informal processes are the absolute enemy of compliance. When workflows aren't formalized, providers document things inconsistently.
Yeah, every doctor has their own style.
Exactly. One doctor writes a detailed 2-page narrative for every evaluation, explicitly noting the barriers to recovery. Another doctor leaves 3 bullet points and a messy signature.
Which is a nightmare for an auditor.
When an auditor pulls those files to check for AB 1870 compliance, the inconsistency looks like incompetence. It looks like the clinic has no standard of care and no internal oversight whatsoever.
Which brings us to the ultimate danger of the office hero.
Oh, the office hero.
Every disorganized clinic has one. You know exactly who I'm talking about. I call this the lottery factor.
The lottery factor.
Yeah. If your entire boundary between evaluation, treatment, and billing relies entirely on Brenda, the stressed-out office manager who holds the clinic's entire informal workflow in her head.
Brenda knows everything.
Brenda knows the passwords, she knows which doctor forgets to sign charts, she knows it all. But what happens if Brenda wins the lottery tomorrow and quits?
Or just goes on a 2-week vacation.
Exactly. Your compliance strategy isn't a system, it's just Brenda.
And relying on individuals rather than systems is a catastrophic vulnerability. If a workflow only functions because a specific employee has the institutional memory to manually connect the dots between the clinical side and the admin side, the business is fundamentally broken.
It's just a house of cards.
It is. Regulators auditing for AB 1870 compliance will not accept Brenda handles it as a valid operational structure.
So what does this all mean? We know the regulators are changing the rules of the game for 2026.
The clock is ticking.
We know AB 1870 demands structural transparency, and we know that relying on hallway conversations and office heroes is causing silent losses and inviting audits. So how does a clinic actually extract the knowledge out of Brenda's head and turn it into a system before the deadline?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the solution isn't some complex legal maneuver or hiring a team of expensive defense attorneys.
Thank goodness.
Right. The actual defense against AB 1870 is radically standardized documentation and workflow protocols. The clinic has to physically map its own operations.
Which brings us to the survival guide. This is the core of our deep dive today. Focusing on things to try. Our source material details a really specific blueprint for completely realigning clinic processes with these new legal expectations.
It's a very practical, step-by-step approach.
Yes, and the very first priority is making the invisible visible. You have to literally map out who does what.
You cannot build boundaries if you don't know where the current overlaps actually are.
That makes sense.
So the clinic leadership must document the entire life cycle of a patient visit. Who specifically performs the evaluation? Who writes the report? Who authorizes the subsequent treatment?
Who codes the bill?
Exactly. You need to strip away fancy job titles and look at the actual tasks being performed on, say, a random Tuesday afternoon.
Okay, let me challenge that slightly. Because mapping out tasks sounds great in a boardroom or on a nice clean whiteboard. But in a busy clinic, people wear multiple hats.
They have to.
Right. If the same person evaluating the patient is also unilaterally deciding the billing codes without any secondary review, an auditor is going to spot that immediately.
Oh, 100%. It's a huge red flag.
So how does a practice actually fix that overlap without having to, double their payroll and hire separate people for every single microtask?
That is the most common pushback from clinic owners. They say, I can't afford to hire 5 new people. But the goal isn't to hire a different person for every task.
Oh, it's not.
No, the goal is to create structural separation between the tasks themselves.
Wait, how do you separate the tasks if it's the same person?
If a provider must evaluate the patient and select the billing code, you implement a required checkpoint in the process.
Okay, but what does a checkpoint actually look like in practice? Are we talking about printing out a form and physically signing it with a pen?
It needs to be much more robust than a piece of paper. A clear checkpoint usually lives within the electronic health record system, the EHR.
Okay, so a software solution.
Right. When the physician finishes the clinical evaluation, the EHR software physically locks the billing module.
Wait, it just shuts them out.
It locks them out. The provider cannot just quickly type in a high-level code and hit submit. The system forces them into a completely separate screen where they must select specific, predefined criteria that actually justify that code.
Wow. So it forces them to slow down and prove their work.
Exactly. And the software requires a digital signature stamping the exact time and date the clinical rationale was provided. And this is entirely separate from the administrative act of sending the bill.
It takes the decision out of the hallway.
Yes. It takes it out of the hallway and forces it into an auditable digital footprint.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because we're talking about forcing doctors to click more buttons and jump through more digital hoops.
And doctors love that, right?
Oh, they despise it.
Yeah.
You can design the most beautiful, compliant, auditor-proof workflow in the world, put it in a pristine binder, and your medical staff will completely ignore it if you don't handle the psychology of training correctly.
The human element is the point of failure for almost every compliance initiative.
Absolutely.
Clinic administrators often roll out these new protocols by simply dictating steps. They send out a dry memo detailing the new checkboxes required by AB 1870.
And what happens?
The staff immediately views it as arbitrary administrative torture.
Exactly. If you walk into a staff meeting on a Monday morning and say, hey everyone, AB 1870 means we have to fill out these 3 new screens in the EHR every time a patient blinks, your team will actively find workarounds.
Oh, they are incredibly creative at bypassing rules.
They will share passwords, they will copy-paste boilerplate text, and they will defeat your system. But if you focus on the why instead of just the what, that changes the dynamic completely.
It really does. When staff understand the underlying purpose, compliance rates absolutely skyrocket.
Because it's not just a chore anymore.
Right. You don't pitch it as a scary regulatory mandate.
Yeah.
You pitch it as a protective measure. You explain to the team that the clinic is losing thousands of dollars a month to silent losses, like those missed RFAs we talked about.
You show them the math.
Exactly. And you explain that state regulators are actively searching for reasons to claw back revenue. You frame these new digital checkpoints as armor.
Armor. I like that.
It's armor that protects the provider's medical license, and it secures the clinic's overall financial stability.
It transitions the staff from feeling heavily policed to feeling heavily protected. But let's be real. Even with incredible training, human nature always drifts back toward the path of least resistance.
Always. It's inevitable.
You can't just set up the rules on January 1st and assume everyone is still perfectly executing the digital lockouts by October. They'll find a shortcut.
Which is why ongoing monitoring is a non-negotiable part of this survival guide. You cannot just set it and forget it.
So what does monitoring actually look like?
The clinic must build a continuous loop of internal auditing. You pull a random sample of, say, 5 patient charts every single week.
Just a spot check.
Right. And you are specifically looking for process drift. Did the provider actually write a custom justification for the billing code, or did they just copy-paste the exact same paragraph they used for the last 20 patients?
Because an auditor isn't just going to look at one file.
No, they'll pull 50 files.
And if they see the exact same boilerplate text copy-pasted across 50 different patient evaluations, well, they know your structural boundary is a total sham.
It's a dead giveaway.
It proves that the provider is just checking the box to get paid and not actually separating the clinical evaluation from the billing incentive.
And you have to understand, regulators have sophisticated algorithms specifically designed to catch that exact scenario.
They're using algorithms now.
Oh, definitely.
Right.
They scan for identical phrasing, identical timestamps, and statistically improbable billing patterns. So internal monitoring allows you to catch your own staff's behavioral drift before the state's algorithm does.
That is terrifying, but it makes so much sense. We've spent a lot of time outlining the human side of all these protocols, though.
The difficult part.
Yeah, mapping roles, psychological training, policing staff behavior. But we are rapidly approaching 2026. In the modern era, clinic owners immediately assume they can just throw money at a software vendor to solve all of this.
Oh, the tech solution.
Right. Let's address the technology debate. Because I know people are thinking, can't practice just buy an expensive AB 1870 compliance module for their EHR, turn it on, and go back to normal?
The desire for a technological magic bullet is overwhelming in this industry, especially when dealing with really complex legislation.
Vendors are probably promising the moon right now.
Vendors will absolutely try to sell you software that promises total out-of-the-box compliance, but relying purely on technology is a massive trap.
Why is it a trap if it enforces the rules?
Because software is fantastic for bringing visibility to a workflow, right? And it's great for forcing hard starts, like the digital lockouts we discussed. It dramatically reduces manual fat finger errors.
Okay.
But software only enforces the rules you have actually defined.
Oh, I see. It's like buying a Formula One race car for someone who doesn't even know how to drive.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right. The car is incredibly fast. It's engineered perfectly.
Yeah.
But if the driver doesn't understand the basic mechanics of steering, they're just going to crash into a wall at 200 miles an hour.
That is exactly how you should look at it. If your underlying human processes are blurry and informal, if your evaluation team and your billing team still fundamentally operate without communication boundaries, the software will just help you execute a non-compliant process much, much faster.
Wow. So you're just doing the wrong thing at lightning speed.
Exactly. Going back to your earlier analogy, if the chef is still acting as the health inspector, buying them a shiny new iPad doesn't fix the conflict of interest.
Right. It just makes the conflict digital.
The clinic leadership has to do the grueling, completely unglamorous work of defining the actual business rules first. Only then can the technology support the system.
You cannot outsource your operational structure to a piece of code.
You really can't.
If you haven't done the hard work of separating evaluation from treatment from administration, the software is essentially useless. And I think that brings us to the ultimate mindset shift our source material demands from anyone running a multi-role clinic today.
The big takeaway.
Yes, you have to completely discard the old way of thinking about regulatory requirements. Compliance is not a separate chore anymore.
No, it's not.
It is not a tax you pay at the end of the year, and it is certainly not just a box you check when an auditor suddenly knocks on your door.
It has to become the structural foundation of the clinic. The framework of AB 1870 isn't like an accessory you bolt onto your business. It is the chassis of the car.
The chassis.
Right. You can have the most brilliant physicians providing the absolute best clinical care in the state, which is your massive, powerful engine. But if you don't have the structural chassis of compliance holding it all together, the entire vehicle just disintegrates the second it hits the bump of a state audit.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. So let's deliver the single actionable takeaway for you, the learner listening right now. As soon as this deep dive is over, look at your clinic setup and ask yourself one highly specific question.
Just one question.
Does each individual role in your clinic have clear, auditable boundaries and documentation?
And be honest with yourself. Do not ask yourself if you provide good care. That's not the question.
Right. Do not ask if the patients are happy.
Ask yourself if you can hand a state auditor a documented workflow that proves, without a doubt, your evaluation decisions are completely insulated from your billing operations.
And if your answer relies on, well, Brenda knows how to handle it,
you have found your starting line.
it's time to start mapping.
Yes, start mapping today. And remind yourself why you should actually care about this. Yes, we started by talking about state regulators and audits and the looming threat of AB 1870, but playing defense against the government is only half the equation here.
The other half is your bottom line. Exactly. By doing the really difficult work of mapping these roles, drawing these boundaries, and forcing these digital checkpoints, you are actively plugging your silent losses.
You are capturing the revenue from those missed RFAs.
You are legitimately claiming the higher billing codes you've actually earned.
Yeah.
You are building a practice that doesn't just survive a regulatory crackdown in 2026, but actually runs predictably and profitably.
You are transitioning from a fragile clinic, one that is entirely dependent on the memories of a few stressed employees, into a hardened, systematized business.
And that transition pays dividends far beyond just satisfying a state mandate.
It really does. It transforms the whole operation.
It does. And I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on that builds on everything we've uncovered today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've spent this entire time talking about how regulators are demanding to see the documented process of how every single medical and financial decision is made. The government is basically forcing you to prove your operational transparency.
Right. They want to see under the hood.
But look at the broader trends in consumer healthcare right now. Patients are getting smarter.
Very true.
They have more access to data, to online reviews, and to provider histories than ever before. So if the government is demanding this intense level of structural transparency now, how long until savvy patients start demanding this exact same transparency before they even walk through your door?
Oh, that's an interesting point.
Right. How long until the deciding factor for an injured worker isn't just, are you a good doctor, but rather, can you prove to me that your clinic's structural setup is designed to prioritize my healing over your billing overlap?
The legislative mandate is just the first wave. Consumer demand for that exact same transparency is inevitably next.
Something to think about as you start mapping out those roles and preparing your clinic for the future. Until next time, keep digging and keep learning. Thanks for listening to Workers' Comp Unwrapped. If you found value in today's episode, subscribe and share with fellow doctors. Stay informed and keep making a difference in your patients' care.